Welcome to our studio. Thanks for taking the time to come and visit. Thank you. Happy New Year, first of all. And you've been here in Mongolia for 5 months now.
That's correct.
As I've been informed. And what did you notice about the sector of insurance, its development?
I think there is a unique situation. From one side, the banking sector is developing quite actively, and the insurance sector is being very immature. And I was surprised, in fact, that by the matter of there's 17 insurance companies with a capital requirement of close to $2.5 million. I mean, 5 billion tugriks. And the 70% of the major players is 4 insurance companies. They writing the 70% of the market.
Large ones.
So I think there are too many players in a small market. And there are some issues. First of all, this is the capital requirement. I mean, one can say maybe it's 4 insurance companies enough, not having a 17. The other one is the professionalism of the staff. Historically, as I believe, the insurance companies have not been writing insurance themselves. They're just doing fronting for the foreign players. As a result, the company's been concentrating not on developing their own expertise, but just following what the international experts will tell them. So I think it is impossible to grow the market without a professional underwriters and actuaries. Also, just one interesting case, it's not only 4 insurance companies are the largest players, but also only 4 insurance companies have a proper actuaries, which is in most of the countries is illegal to write insurance without actuaries. And this is another subject which normally I would expect that the licenses will be suspended, the insurance companies will stop their activities until they're fully compliant. But even the capital requirement this year has been released, and in accordance with the request lobbying of some of the insurance companies, it has been achieved that this capital requirement is prolonged for another quarter. So I think those things does not really help in the development of the insurance sector as an industry. The other interesting subject which I have just recognized is happening is the low insurance culture. The penetration in Mongolia is very low, which provides high growth opportunity and perspective. But the problem is that those 17 insurance companies, they don't really care about the profitability. What they care is mostly as the growth, and we end up in a price wars. And insurance companies, instead of thinking of a proper underwriting, they're just trying to win this business with the cheaper rates. On top of that, there is also the problems with the agents. The agency commissions is too high. So if you take the financial side of the insurance activity, I just give you the general view based on the general idea. So in average, the expense ratio for insurance companies is around 50%. The loss ratio for, let's take driver's liability insurance, is 70%. So it already makes 120%. But then on top of that, insurance companies somehow managing to pay 30%. So that basically means that for 100 tugrik money made, they're losing 150 tugrik. And then at the end of the day, the insurance companies or top managers, they don't really think about the profitability. They just think how to grow it faster and how to gain the market share.
I see. So what does the regulatory agency, the FRC, should do on this? And it's said that FRC has been following the international standards for the past maybe 10 years, but as you say, this is not helping a lot.
The FRC is following international standards, and the thing is, I think the regulation is in place. Unfortunately, this is probably common in many countries. The right laws, the regulations, they exist, but the implementation has not been done properly. There is a big lobbying as well, and one of the reasons I think that even the recent changes required to increase the capital being allowed to delay for 1 quarter, I think it's just happened because of the lobbying. In a way, this is the same problem as with the insurance companies. FRC have a lot of financial experts and specialists with the MBAs, but they don't have the experts with the insurance background. And I think here is also difficult to understand. Insurance has a longer term view than the banking. Especially today, like I said at the beginning, the banking sector is booming. And most of the experts, even in the insurance sector, they're bankers. But the banker's view is totally different from the insurer's view. So I think the implementation is more important, not really the regulatory part. The other thing, there is a trend globally. It's for the self-regulated environment, which is called Solvency II. And I think FRC is paying attention to that, but not enough attention. But the most important, which I mentioned, is the actuaries. The insurance companies cannot survive without an actuary. So what is needed to be done is definitely either the actuarial school, or there has to be a proper actuarial education arranged with the international institutions abroad.
I see. Well, speaking of the market here, a big change has been delivered after the mandatory policy has been introduced. Firstly, for the drivers, we're waiting for the medicals and other, construction mandatory policies, but still not in effect. What do you think is the why is this not happening?
Yes, I think we have to be careful with the mandatory types of insurance because so far it has a both positive and negative effect. The positive effect was that, of course, it improves the insurance culture. The people will have to buy.
Yeah.
The negative effect, the insurance company is getting lazier. I mean, selling compulsory insurance, you don't need to have sales skills. You just sell it. And then the problem, like I described, the driver's liability, they're paying 30%. We've been pioneering the idea of let's pay 0 or in a best case scenario 10%, but not more for the compulsory lines of insurance. The other problem, just taking this one example of a compulsory driver's liability, it has been introduced in 2012. And in average, the premiums is about $15 and the liability of $2,500. And in 2012, up till now, you can imagine the spare parts, which are mostly imported, they all increased in price. So what happened is the loss ratio automatically is now hitting the total liability limit. But because it was taken as a law and because it is the compulsory line of insurance, the only thing which was possible to be done is last year, I think it's in summer, what happened is just there were corrections based on the coefficients. And so the weighting has changed, but the rates didn't change. So I think this is something which will be difficult to change if you're dealing with the compulsory lines of insurance. The other thing is, I'm not very keen on compulsory lines because we have to educate the population, and the population should understand it is not being pushed to buy insurance, but it should be their own will to buy insurance. And as an insurance company, we have to educate, we have to make sure that by the services, they're convinced that it is really for their best to buy insurance policy. Because in the most countries, if it is in the mentality, you cannot survive without insurance policies. Here, you're only dealing with a case when everybody buys insurance, either compulsory driver's liability, collateral insurance, mortgage insurance, when they have to deal with it. But normal things like property insurance for their property, vehicle insurance for their vehicles, they don't buy it. The construction insurance, there have been discussions about making it compulsory. I've seen the practice mostly in the developing countries. Yes, it has been made compulsory. But again, there is a risk. If we do it properly, if we put the right tariffs, the right rates, the right liability limits, then of course it may be good. But the problem is, again, the lobbying powers, there will be someone will be trying to do it, oh, okay, this is another way for me to make money, and not really caring about the customers.
I see. Let's talk about this in a short break. And өнөөдөр бид Тэнгэр даатгал компани гүйцэтгэх захирал Ойбек Н.Халиловтай ярилцаж байгаа асуух зансарлаад эргээд ярилцлаа. So let's continue our discussion about the insurance sector. So we talked about many problems you see in the sector. What are opportunities?
The opportunities, for us, we think the opportunity again is the bank assurance, because the banks are booming. The banking sector is much better even with some of the more developed markets.
95% of the whole.
Yeah, I mean, just take the Russia, Kazakhstan. And the banking sector here is stronger and is closer to the international standards. So for us, for the insurance companies, I think the great opportunity is in the bank assurance. So we have to use this opportunity with the more developed financial sector to use it as a distribution channel to increase the insurance culture. But again, as I said, we have to use it in a proper way, just developing the voluntary type of insurance, not compulsory.
I see. Well, as of now, the government is actually discussing about the government procurement on insurance services specifically. Do you think it's essential?
Yeah, I think it is essential, but there should be a framework. Insurance companies is not like selling packs of cigarettes or Coca-Cola. You cannot have a tender like every month and then just trying to, because it takes time. Insurance is all about science and it's not art. So I think it is important for the regulator to set up the framework. So for example, those things I've mentioned, the prudential guidelines, the financial stability, combined ratio, the capital requirements. So if those guidelines are met, the rating in the future, hopefully when Mongolia gets a rating, insurance companies should be rated as well. So those guidelines should be in place, and then of course the procurement should be done in accordance with the those guidelines, but not like normally when we say procurement, everybody thinks it's a tender requirement. So let's just, and then what we have again is a price wars. Everybody's just trying to beat each other with a lower price.
Yeah, I see. And on the other hand, what kind of new products insurance companies themselves have to introduce into this market? Is market ready for many products now?
Yes, yes. I think it is, and this is one of the greatest opportunities. I think I was excited to come here because it's challenging environment. From one thing is it's not a big population, but a big concentration in Ulaanbaatar, and also there is a need for insurance because the penetration is very low. The other thing is the world already created so many different interesting and exciting products which have not been sold here. And what I found is also very interesting here is that it's easier to sell not the classical type of insurance, but those like gadgets, I would say, of the insurance universe, and these interesting new products. In a corporate sector, it's financial lines, so it covers like directors and officers liability insurance, the complex insurance for the banks, which is banker's blanket bond. In the consumer world, it's more like a loyalty type of products, you know, like the fraud insurance when you use the plastic cards, travel insurance, medical insurance, I mean, international medical insurance with a global coverage. Those things definitely could be developed, and I think this is the opportunities. And the opportunity is really great because all those products, someone may think, they're not accessible, but they are, because one thing is also Mongolia have been using differently the capacity of the international market. The international markets can support whatever will be done here if we will be willing to take the risks. At the moment, the international market just been using this as a small player through the fronting.
I see. And lastly, let's talk about the Monголын Даатгалын's future plans, not only in short term, but in the longer view.
One of the reasons why I'm here, the shareholders of Tengger Financial Group, they decided to grow the group in accordance with international standards. You probably know that our group is mostly owned by the international institutional investors. So there was a plan to make this company working in accordance with international standards. So this is in a longer view also because the shareholders interested in the return on investment. So I think its ROE is one of the major targets for us, and we're targeting for the 30% ROE in 5 years, which is quite big growth. We, for example, from this year to the next year, we have to grow in net income 5 times. Not taking into account that last year and this year, we're a champion in the net income. This was one of the reasons why Tengger Insurance was chosen as the best insurance company by the Mongolian Chamber of Commerce. So the longer term view to make it stable, strong, in accordance with international standards. When I arrived, initially I was thinking I will start hitting with the sales, but no, we've spent the last few months, just before the beginning of this year, we spent on building control framework, which allowed the insurer to make the basement for the future growth. So unlike local insurance companies or the neighboring countries as well, as we started from building the structure first and building the controls before we go forward with the sales. In terms of sales, of course, those things which I have mentioned, the bank assurance is a priority for us. We will be trying to develop bank assurance. The other priority is these new products like financial lines. So we will be having conferences and events for our clients in D&O, Banker's Blanket Bond. We're also we're not willing to become a leader, but we're willing to become a leader in the niche markets. So we choose a few like bank assurance, accident and health, medical insurance, travel, D&O. So those will be the areas where Tengger Insurance would like to be a leader.
All right. Thank you so much. Good luck on your business.
Thank you.